My sister dumped her kids at my house and demanded I babysit them while she went on an 8-week vacation. When I threatened to call the police, she had me assaulted in my own home just so she could take them back. My life was upended the day my sister decided it was her turn to be the center of the universe, and everyone else could just deal with the fallout. It was a quiet Saturday morning, and I was relishing the peace after a demanding work week when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find my 2 nephews, aged 10 and 7, standing on my porch clutching overnight bags. They looked as confused as I felt. When I asked them what was going on, they explained, matter-of-factly, that their mom was going on an 8-week vacation and had told them I was watching them. My sister and I hadn't spoken since a family barbecue months prior, where her parting shot was a comment about my muffin top. The audacity was staggering. These were good, quiet kids, so I let them in and immediately started calling their mother. She ignored my first 10 calls, but I was relentless. When she finally answered, I didn't mince words. I told her there was absolutely no way I was watching her children for 2 months, and that if she didn't come retrieve them immediately, I would be calling Child Protective Services. I was already pulling up the number on my computer as I had her on speakerphone. Her response was a chilling pivot. Her voice dropped into a low, threatening tone. She blackmailed me, stating that if I didn't comply, she would call my employer and falsely report that I was off my bipolar medication and having a mental crisis, which would get me fired. My career was my entire world, the one thing I had built for myself out of the ashes of my family's disdain. The threat struck a nerve of pure terror. I hung up, my head spinning. This was a nightmare. Not only was this an impossible demand, but I had a pivotal trip planned in a month to Australia to meet my long-distance boyfriend Eric's family for the first time. Everything was crumbling because of my sister's selfishness. In a moment of desperation, I called the one person I should have known would never help me, my mother. Predictably, she sided with my sister. She guilt-tripped me, claiming my sister had done so much for me and I needed to be there for her just this once. I lost my composure and screamed into the phone, demanding she name one single time my sister had ever been there for me. I insisted she come to my house so we could talk face to face, a small part of me hoping I could somehow leave her with the kids while I went to Australia. When my mother arrived, her expression was cold and hateful, just as it had been my entire life. She launched into a lecture about family duty. I cut through her nonsense and demanded the truth. What kind of vacation was so important that my sister would abandon her children? My mother's face shifted, and she finally admitted it. My sister wasn't on a typical vacation. She was being flown out by her sugar daddy. I was incredulous. I unleashed my fury, telling my mother she had raised a loser who would rather be a sugar baby than a mother. In response, my mother delivered the cruelest blow she ever had. She told me it didn't matter how successful I was or how nice my house was, I would always be the ugly duckling compared to my sister. Born ugly and you'll die ugly. I screamed at her to get out of my house. She refused, and when I tried to physically guide her out, she shoved me with all her strength. I stumbled back into a coffee table, sending a beautiful vase, a gift from my boyfriend, crashing to the floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces. Seeing it destroyed triggered a complete mental breakdown. I was sobbing and screaming until I finally forced her out. My nephews peeked out of the guest room, their eyes wide with fear. Their scared faces broke my heart. They were just innocent kids caught in the crossfire of our family's toxicity. I ordered them food and let them watch movies until they fell asleep, trying to provide some semblance of comfort. Later, I called my sister again, and the conversation was even worse. She repeated her threat with a sinister laugh, hissing that I was nothing without my job. When I cried and asked why she hated me so much, she sneered that she was the type of woman who could make millions from a sugar daddy, something I never had to worry about. Feeling utterly defeated, I called my boyfriend, Eric. He was my rock. He calmly pointed out that my sister was committing multiple crimes and advised me to secretly record our next conversation to get evidence of her blackmail. It was a genius idea. The next day, I focused on the boys. I took them to the mall and bought them new clothes, noticing the state of their old ones. I spoiled them, buying them Nintendo Switches. Their joy was overwhelming. My eldest nephew, through tears, asked me why I was being so nice to them. I told them they deserved happiness simply because they were kids. He cried harder and confessed he was angry at his mother for keeping us apart. Hearing about their neglect from their own mouths solidified my resolve. I called my sister again, staying calm enough to steer the conversation back to her threat. As predicted, she erupted, screaming that she would lie to my boss and no one would believe a crazy sicko like me. I had the entire rant on recording. The following morning, I called CPS, reported everything, and sent them the recording. The agent was appalled and opened an immediate investigation. My mother, in a fit of rage after I told her I'd contacted CPS, hung up on me. I knew she'd warn my sister. The next morning at 8 a.m., I was jolted awake by violent pounding on my door. I opened it to find my sister, my mother, and a gigantic man I'd never seen before. Before I could speak, the man shoved me to the floor. They barged in as my nephews, woken by the noise, emerged from their room. My sister barked at the man to put them in the car. As both boys cried and begged to stay with me, I tried to intervene, but the man grabbed my head and slammed it into the wall. Dazed, I watched him carry my screaming nephews away. As she left, my sister walked over to me and spat directly in my face. I called the police immediately, providing detailed descriptions and, miraculously, the license plate number of their black Suburban. Hours later, the police called back. They'd found the car. The giant man had attacked officers during the traffic stop, and my sister had fought back too. They were both arrested. The officer mentioned my sister wanted to use her one phone call on me, presumably for bail money. I refused to take the call. My nephews were placed in temporary CPS care. My trip to Australia was a welcome, though guilt-ridden escape. Meeting Eric's family was wonderful, and the time with him was healing. But upon returning home, the battle resumed. I pressed charges for breaking and entering an assault. The CPS investigation concluded by permanently removing my nephews from my sister's custody, opening the door for me to file for custody myself. The legal proceedings were long and brutal. In court, during the trial for the assault on me, the judge inadvertently revealed I was seeking custody of my nephews. My sister snapped. She launched herself at me in the middle of the courtroom, scratching, punching, and sinking her teeth deep into my forearm before the bailiff could pull her off. That act, witnessed by the judge, sealed her fate. It took nearly 2 years for all the criminal charges to resolve. My sister received a life sentence due to the stacked charges. My mother only avoided prison by testifying against her, finally throwing her golden child under the bus to save herself. I watched her betray my sister with a sense of cold finality. It was the last time I ever saw or wanted to see her. The custody battle against the boy's birth father was grueling, but I never gave up. Finally, I won full custody. The day I brought my nephews home to the rooms I'd prepared for them is etched in my memory forever. My youngest nephew found his Nintendo Switch and the little plush dog he'd left behind. When I handed it to him, he fell into my arms. His older brother joined us, and we held each other tightly, all of us crying. My eldest looked up at me, his eyes full of tears, and smiled. "I knew it, Auntie," he whispered. "I just knew you would come back for us one day." In that moment, every painful battle was worth it. I had finally found my real family.